Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis is in the building. Thank you very much. I'm so pleased that you're all here for this exclusive Canadian screening event of Baz Luhrmann's Elvis. Go ahead. Very exciting night for us. We like to begin everything we do here at TIFF by just taking a moment to reflect on where we are, the land that we're on, and its history. Here in Toronto, we're located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. And this territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, and it's home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And we at TIFF are grateful to be working on this land. I want to thank everyone who helps to support what we do here at TIFF, beginning with our members and our donors. Anybody a member here tonight? I know we've got another theater that's full of members, but some of you as well here. Thank you for coming. You're helping us to do what we do to transform the way people see the world through film. If you're interested in supporting what we do, you can go online to tiff.net and also support us through our Share Her Journey and Every Story initiatives. Big thank you also to our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, Visa, and Bulgari, for their unparalleled support. And thanks finally to our major supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto. And a big shout out and hello to audiences tuning in all around the world through the live stream of this Q&A that's upcoming on TikTok. All right. That'll be exciting. It'll be my TikTok debut, so I can't wait. Finally, we'd like to extend a big thank you to Warner Brothers Pictures Canada for bringing this film to TIFF Bell Lightbox in advance of its official release date. It will be only in theaters on Friday, June 24th. And it's now my great pleasure to invite the cast. That's right, only in theaters. Is that what you're applauding for? Because that's what we like to hear. It's now my great pleasure to invite the cast and Oscar-nominated visionary filmmaker to join us on stage. Please join me in welcoming director Baz Luhrmann and stars Olivia DeJonge and Austin Butler.
Hi, thanks so much. Shout out to the other theater watching as well. Plus all the TikTok audience. Check out my TikTok account. Now I've done that. Let's go.
Shameless plug.
Shameless.
Always.
Well, I'm glad you have a TikTok account. I'm still getting up to speed on that. But
it's awesome. I love how connective it is with the audience. I really do.
Elvis was such an incredible talent, but also a product, as you show in the movie, of all the media around him, the music industry, TV, his movies, all of that. When it came time to creating this icon in this film version, what was the challenge in showing us what Elvis truly was, amidst the swirl of all that media that made him?
I mean, I think a lot of the younger audiences who have seen it immediately go to the cautionary tale of fame and all of that media. It's funny, we're talking about TikTok and we're talking about the ability to suddenly be the incredible amount of attention that can be on you very, very quickly. Now, the journey I went on was a journey where I started researching in Graceland. I was in Graceland a couple of days ago, and I arrived there 5 years ago. And for 2 years, I was, not just doing academic research, and I had an office in the back of Graceland, but I was also meeting the people that met Elvis. So it's kind of was going and doing the journey of Elvis right back to when he was born, born of a twin, the shame of the father going to jail. So poor they moved to one of the few white houses in the black community. His relationship to the black community, his relationship to black music, Beale Street, all of that journey to give context and to show the journey of the human being. So I think what happens is, of course, the other half of the film is about Colonel Tom Parker, never Colonel, never Tom, never Parker. Dun, 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 plot twist, okay? All right, played by Tom Hanks. And his job is about the big sell. Like, this to me is a film more than about Elvis. It's really about America in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and America where it is now. Because Parker is all about sell, 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 brand, brand, brand. He's the one that branded him as king. Elvis always said, I'm not the king. Look, he says, Fats Domino, come over here. This is the real king of rock and roll. So this thing of a gifted and sensitive human being with a gift to put emotion into song and grabbing that person and selling that person and branding that person and ultimately in the end, the control of that person, and there lies tragedy. So
you do all of this research over such a long period. You know Elvis and his family and his story intimately. Then you get to the point of casting Elvis and casting Priscilla. And I wanted to ask you about what went into those decisions that led you to Austin and led you to Olivia. And I want to hear from you two as well about the process of actually taking on these roles and finally winning the approval of Baz Luhrmann to play Elvis and Priscilla.
Yes, casting is not for any actor. It's a very sensitive experience. So I don't do that. I don't do standard auditions. People don't walk in my door. I go like, okay, next, not so much, goodbye, or amazing. It doesn't work like that for me. I make films so rarely that I consider any actor who walks into my door, it's a privilege for me. And what I do is I go in my mind, when you come into my space, I am going to make you get the role. And I'm going to learn something about this script by having different actors, different performers read the material or work on the material as if we were trying to explore it. So that's the process I go on. Having said that, the process of casting this role was completely unexpected and has never happened to me before and probably will never happen again. I can say it with Austin in the room now, but I'll get a videotape. The way I said videotape sounds like I was in the 70s, right? That's how old I am. Yeah, a videotape, And on my, space, whatever. I mean,
VHS
technology me. Anyway, there's this young guy, and he's like, he's in a bathrobe. And I thought it was at a white piano, but I exaggerated a bit. You've seen my films, right? So anyway, he's crying up to the heavens, and he really is I felt like I was watching some intimate moment. It turns out it was an intimate moment. Maybe you can talk about that later. But that tape, I say, who is this? I have to see them. It is true that Denzel Washington rings and said, you're going to meet a young actor who has a work ethic like no one you've met. But I think it's true to say that when Oz came in, he was already down Elvis Presley Boulevard. And what I mean by that is he'd already started working on sound and voice and movement. And he came in, and I only remember that I have the weight of, number one, I've researched the story. So I know the journey of the human being, not for some people, the icon, the god, and for a certain generation, the guy in Lilo and Stitch, I talked to Rose from, Blackpink. She said, oh, yeah, I remember him. He was in Lilo and Stitch. I said, yeah. Yeah. But the human being, who could, above and beyond everything else, I had to find someone who wasn't doing an impersonation of the most impersonated man on the planet, but actually an interpretation and could actually capture the spirit, because he's a very spiritual guy. So that was kind of there from day one for me. I don't know if I've ever told you that. But the reason I made it so hard for you, I'm so sorry, I feel bad admitting it, was that I was constantly seeing, could you be robust enough to handle having to turn on a dime, what was going to come at you? Because in all honesty, I knew the person who did that role would have to give a huge chunk of their life to it, and they were going to have to climb the Mount Everest, the Hamlet of musical artists, to actually achieve all the physical stuff, yes. All of the mental stuff, yes. You had to be robust. And then the spiritual inner life. There was such a big call. And then, I don't remember, you probably remember it, but to me, I just remember it just went on. Now, Priscilla was different. What's very important to know is that the Presleys they don't dictate to me what's in the script. They don't get any money out of the movie. They're not connected to the estate in that way. Of course, I wanted to meet with them, and I did. I met with Lisa Marie. Priscilla was quite helpful in the beginning. Riley, fantastic, by the way. Winning Camden, what an amazing powerhouse of a person. But then we shot in Australia, and the COVID estranged us. I didn't see them for 2 years. And Priscilla was quite concerned about what I would do with her life and her husband's life. So in the casting of Priscilla, it's different. You're casting someone who's actually living. And I needed someone also as a player who could go from this kind of very an innocent Priscilla who at some time in the Hollywood period is having Elvis is doing her hair, to actually finding herself, to going through all sorts of emotional tension and then becoming her own woman, and a very strong woman who's her own icon. And that's a big call. That's an acting call. And to be honest, when I saw Olivia sent me a tape, and pretty quickly amongst all these other terrific tapes that came in, I went like, got to get her. And it wasn't easy, actually. But that's another story. What did you tell her?
That is another story for another time.
Don't bring that up. Sorry for the long answer.
No, that's great. It's great insight into that whole process. Maybe I'll start with you, Austin. From your perspective, how did that story go in terms of becoming the man who would play Elvis for Baz's movie?
So I heard that Baz was making the film, and as soon as I heard it, it's one of those things where there was a couple of things that had happened in the month prior that I never had people tell me, you should play Elvis any time in my life. But the month prior, I heard it 2 times. But it's the type of thing where obviously that opportunity is incredible, but it's such a far reach. It never seemed possible. I didn't know Baz was making this movie. Then I get a call after that month that Baz is making an Elvis film. All the hairs on my arm stood up. I've had so many moments like that in this process where I just go, whoa, it feels like the stars are aligning or something, you know? And so I heard Baz was making the movie, and it still seemed like such a far reach, but at that point, I just thought, well, I got to throw my hat in the ring, and how would I approach this? And I had a couple weeks. You were still casting Tom at the time. You were still trying to find who Colonel Parker was going to be, is the story that I had heard. So I had a little bit of time before he was going to be looking for, the role that I was looking at. And so what I did was I just gave in to the obsession as though I had the job at that point. And my agent had said, you should send Baz a tape of you singing. Because that's different. He can watch your acting, but there's nothing of you singing, so you should do something like that. And so I at this point, I was listening to every song that Elvis ever recorded, and watching every documentary, and I ended up taping "Love Me Tender" from his first film, and it was just a sweet song, and I filmed
Beautiful song.
Yeah, I love that song, and I've never even showed you that tape, but it would be funny to watch it back.
I want to see it.
I think we all want to see that.
Do I still get the part?
Let's project it now. Yeah. I have it here. Can you roll the tape? Ladies and gentlemen, the unseen Love Me Tender tape.
No, so I didn't send it. And maybe it's in the trash can on my computer or something like that, but I just saw an impersonation. And that's when I first started learning about the difference. And it was the difference in how it feels. And the difference in thinking, oh, I need to contort my face into this place, and it all being about some external thing, or make my voice sound like this, but it not being about the inner life. And so I watched that tape back, and I was really kind of, I went back to the drawing board, and I was watching this documentary, and I learned that Elvis's mother passed away when he was 23. And that hit me like a freight train, because that's the same age I was when my mom died. And my mom was my best friend, and so was Elvis's mom. And in that moment, he ceased to be this icon, and he was this young man who lost his mom, and I knew that grief that he felt. And from that became this thing that I knew, if I find that key, there must be a ton of other things out there. And so after that Love Me Tender tape, I had a couple of days that went by, and then I had this nightmare. One like I woke up from it in the morning, and that my mom was dying again. And it's that, I mean, anybody who's lost somebody that they love so much, you know what that grief feels like. And it was that thing where I just felt like this day is going to be awful. And then I thought, well, Elvis probably would have woken up from something like this. And what if I do something with that? And so this is the bathrobe thing, which is, I've just woken up and I threw on a bathrobe, and I went to the piano and I set up a camera and just in my living room, and I filmed myself singing Unchained Melody, because I'd always heard that song as being sung to a romantic partner, but at that point I sang it to my mom. Oh, yeah. And it became this thing, like how interpretation, what that actually means when you're taking your soul, you're taking all of your life experiences and you're connecting them to his, and you're connecting them in such a way that it ceases to feel like you're playing someone else, and then it just feels like you're actually living this. And it's the most, so it ended up being one of those things where at first he felt 40 feet tall all the time, and I felt so small. And then he started to feel closer and closer until it felt like I was looking out of his eyes. And that's an experience unlike I've ever had before. And so I mean, this is my long-winded version of the story, but basically I send the tape to Baz, and then he responded in the way he did. We spent, and Baz says we just moved fluidly, but actually what happened was we spent 5 months of the most beautiful process of collaboration, where it didn't ever feel like I was auditioning. We just were exploring, and we were singing a song one day or reading scenes from the script the next, but that was 5 months long. And then came the screen test. And the day of the screen test, I prepared all this material, and I thought I was going to sing 3 songs and do 3 scenes, and I showed up, and they put me in sideburns and everything, and Baz changed everything on the day.
What a fun guy. Hey.
He but the way he did it as well, it was amazing, because he'd built this set, and so we're about to start. I'm coming in, this is my big screen test, and I'm on this set, and Baz starts explaining the scene to me, and I spent a second, I thought, wait, and he goes, so you're going to sing the Little Richard song over here, and then the B.B. King song is going to be over here, and none of those songs were in my preparation. And I said, Baz, I think I may have different material than you have. And he goes, oh yeah, we'll get you the material. But Elliot's right there. He can teach you the songs. And he starts explaining the scene to me. I never got the material. Instead, as I'm learning the songs, he goes, roll the camera. And they start rolling the camera. And then we ended up moving fluidly into that, which in the moment is terrifying. You feel like everything is going wrong. You feel like this isn't what I prepared. How I'm going to fail. And then the rest of the screen test was the same way, where everything that I thought I was going to do, I didn't do, and he threw all these other things at me. But it became this way that I learned so much from, because you do all the preparation, and then when you show up, Baz is like a jazz musician, where it's all about the improvisation of the stimulus that's happening right here. And it pulls things out of you never knew you had inside you. So I owe Baz so much for that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. Olivia, as Baz said, you're playing someone that will see your performance as her. What was that like, not just being cast by Baz, but knowing that Priscilla was going to see your movie, that you had that responsibility to someone who was still here?
I mean, it was a lot, for sure. I didn't take it lightly. I definitely grappled with this idea of wanting to, bring something truthful to my interpretation. I knew that she was going to see it. I wanted to make sure that something of truth would resonate with her. But I guess sort of like what Os just said, it's so much about extending your own truth inside of you to meet their truth somewhere in the middle. Baz has this sort of incredible way of making you feel calm but chaotic at the same time. But it always somehow, it brings the best results. And, Baz, he creates this incredible space of play. There's an incredible space for failure and for experimentation and for ideas. And at the end of the day, for me, it was just about playing, a girl and a boy that was in love and throwing away the sort of the idea of her being an icon or the idea of them being celebrities or being so incredibly world famous. It was just about playing, two kids in love. So.
We have some questions from TikTok, and I want to start with one for you, Olivia. This is from Miss Haley. Is there anything close to your heart that you have in common with Priscilla?
I mean, I think there's always, love is a very common theme. And I think that, as any young person, you can always experience, different versions of love. That's not too far of an extension. I think that throughout my process of shooting the movie, throughout my process of, I guess, stepping into her shoes, I really came to relate with, I think her femininity and the way that she expressed herself. But yeah.
Austin, I've got a question for you from TikTok as well. This is from Jacob K. How was it learning the iconic Elvis moves?
Thank you, Jacob K. It was incredible because I was never a. Did something just move? The sky is falling. I was never a dancer before. I never understood it. I had never had that experience of, I wanted to be, but I was always so shy. So I would end up, as a wallflower at something where people are dancing. But I had many moments during this process where, and the thing is, you talk about the moves, but again, that's the external thing. It's Elvis didn't have choreography. He moved because the music was moving him, and because of the influences that he had. So the fact that he's in a gospel tent as a young man, as a boy, and experiencing the rapture of gospel music, or being in a juke joint and hearing an electric guitar and the excitement of that. It became about finding those things for me. So it meant everything to me because I had so many epiphanies. I had these moments that felt so basic, but I was like, oh, that's what it means to dance. Mm-hmm. When you feel the music move you, and we had this beautiful time. Baz and I, we went to Nashville and got to listen to we were recording the gospel tent. And so a lot of the people that you'll see in the gospel tent were there recording the song that day. 30 of the most amazing gospel singers I've ever seen in my life in this church that was built in the 1800s for 8 hours just singing and singing from their soul. And they let me stand in the center and everybody stomping their feet and clapping their hands. And that feeling, I knew anytime I wasn't feeling that I was doing something wrong. And so then I just kept tapping back into that. And it was a lot of watching Little Richard and watching, Sister Rosetta and Big Mama Thornton and how their passion, or Howlin' Wolf, the way he sang, all of that passion, that's Elvis, that's where he was getting his inspiration from. So that's what, it was such a gift to me to have those epiphanies,
Thank you. Baz, this one's from TikTok as well, from Film Exteriors. I hadn't heard this word before. How much bazmatazz did you put into Elvis?
The whole month.
Film interiors a person or
into your film, I think.
Into
yes.
your film.
Yes. When you see it, there is a lot of bazmatazz in this movie.
Yeah.
I think. But tell us about
hey,
that.
I'm all right with bazmatazz, but do you know it's a bit of a sleight of hand? I mean, look. I have a way of telling stories, and for better or worse, not everyone likes it, and a lot of people do, but I'm stuck with it. And it's, I'm stuck with bazmatazz. Although, can I be stuck with, I don't know, chicness? I don't know. Minimalism, right? Actually, when I'm not making movies and stuff, when I'm not promoting, I'm quite the opposite person. I live in quite a minimal space. But I do want to point something out about the bazmatazz of it. And I think what that means is energy. It does mean a kind of, visceral, epic language. There's a lot of energy in it. And I'm like that. And so people tend to tell the stories the way that they are. I'm old enough to admit that I'm not kind of low-key, bit extra, you know? But let me tell you something. That is only in service to something really important, and that's telling the story. And I'm really sad, actually. Not sad, but we've been on the road, and for various reasons, talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who's in the movie. And Yola has been with us a lot, and she plays Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the godmother of rock and roll. She's in the movie. She was queer in the 40s. Can you imagine that? Alta Mason plays Little Richard in the movie. I'm saying all of that because the reason we have this lineage of characters, I'm really using the movie not just for Baz and Mataz, although don't worry, folks, you will get your serve of Baz and Mataz. All right? Nice big, whoa, bang. Does anyone use flitter quite like me? I don't think so. All right? We're going to have a confetti drop at the end of this talk. And fireworks. There's a few tropes, the Baz and Mataz tropes, but really getting down to it. I didn't do this to do a biopic or because I needed to, get my Baz and Mataz on. I did it because I wanted to explore America in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and look at now. And Elvis was just an amazing canvas, but it wasn't just Elvis because he represented this kind of lineage, You can't discuss Elvis Presley without discussing his relationship to black music and black culture, and that journey. And you can't discuss or even play the story of America in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s without dealing with the issue of race. Now, there's a whole lot of political issues in it, and there's a whole lot of drama in it. Enter Colonel Tom Parker. Never a colonel, never a Tom, never a Parker, played by Tom Hanks, right? Who's this gigantuan kind of character, a carnival barker, a seller, a sort of Hoover with a chainsaw, a wild wackadoo character who is a carny. And when he sees Elvis, he doesn't know anything about music. He just sees what that kid is doing to an audience, and he goes, that is the greatest carnival act I've ever seen. I must have him. And he knows that if he gets him, he'll be able to kind of make a lot of money. And it's as much about the relationship between the cell and the soul. And Elvis is the soul, because you can say what you like about Elvis, but he was a spiritual person. I know that from the journey. But the cell, when the selling of things, the promoting of things, putting out the big lie, come on, I'll pull the wool over your eyes. It's called snow jobbing. You'll learn about that when you see the film. But people kind of like it. When that gets bigger than the soul of a person or a country or a society, then you've really got tragedy coming your way. And that's what I felt was in it. Thanks. Is that for the Baz Mataz or the soul of the country bit? I just want to know.
I see little Baz Mataz in the audience. There's some glitter people are wearing tonight, so thank you for that. Everybody who showed up with some glitter turned out.
We appreciate that.
We want to get to the movie now, so we are going to just thank this incredible group of people for coming to Toronto, coming to TIFF, being a part of this experience. Olivia DeJonge, Austin Butler, and the amazing Baz Luhrmann. Thank you for Elvis, and enjoy the movie.
Thanks, guys, a lot. Enjoy the movie, and I have nothing to do with glitter myself. There's no Baz Mataz here at all. I'm just a shy country boy. You enjoy the film. See you guys.